Welcome to this explainer. We're going to do something a little bit different today. Instead of just reading you the news, we are going to test your knowledge of June 2026's biggest headlines. That's right, we're doing a full-on review. So get ready, bring your A game, and let's dive into this interactive exam.
Before we even peek at the syllabus, I want you to ask yourself, have you actually been paying attention to the news this month? Do you think you can snag a perfect score on today's quiz? We're covering everything from major diplomatic summits and economic policy, right over to technology and international sports. So get a mental scorecard ready because the assessment starts right now.
Here's the game plan for today's study session. We've got 4 modules to get through. We will kick things off with political events, specifically the G7. Then, we'll shift into flashpoints and major global conflicts. After that, we'll tackle tech and the economy, and finally, wrap the whole thing up with a bonus question before tallying your final score.
All right, let's jump right into Module 1, Political Events, focusing on the G7.
Here is your very first question, testing your awareness of top-level international diplomacy. Which major international summit was held in France this week? Was it A, the G20 summit? Maybe B, the BRICS summit? C, the G7 summit? Or could it be D, the ASEAN summit? Take a second, trust your gut, and lock in your guess.
If you guessed C, the G7 summit, you nailed it. As Reuters reported, France played host to the Group of 7 leaders this week. And you know, this wasn't just a routine photo op. This gathering brought together the leaders of the world's most advanced economies to tackle some incredibly pressing global issues. It really acts as a barometer for Western diplomatic strategy. Give yourself 1 point if you got that right.
Now, moving to the context surrounding that summit, because, hey, these massive events rarely happen in a vacuum. Let's test your knowledge of what was happening right outside the venue. What was the estimated size of the anti-capitalist demonstrations? Was it A, 5,000, B, 10,000, C, 20,000, or D, 50,000?
The answer is 20,000. Yep, Reuters confirmed an estimated 20,000 protesters mobilized during the summit. That is a massive crowd, and it brilliantly illustrates the scale of the events on the ground. This wasn't just background noise. It reflects a highly organized global anxiety over wealth inequality, corporate influence, and climate change. It absolutely forced the leaders inside to recognize the intense, visible pressure coming straight from the streets.
Let's keep the momentum going and move to our next section, flashpoints and major global conflicts.
So we know the summit happened in France, and we know about the protests outside. But do you know what actually dominated the agenda behind those closed doors? What was the primary issue or issues discussed by these leaders? Think about the biggest global currents right now, and lock in your answer.
What's truly fascinating here is how these priorities completely intersect. According to Reuters, the main topics weren't isolated to just one sphere. Leaders were simultaneously addressing the Iran conflict, managing the global economy, and trying to navigate the massive boom of artificial intelligence. It's a perfect snapshot of modern diplomacy, really. You literally cannot disentangle hard geopolitical conflict from economic stability or tech shifts anymore. They are all linked.
Speaking of the Middle East and the Iran conflict, let's test your geographic knowledge. This is a high-stakes puzzle. Which crucial maritime choke point was a massive focal point for global energy concerns? Was it A, the Panama Canal, B, the Suez Canal, C, the Strait of Hormuz, or D, the Bosporus Strait?
The correct answer is C, the Strait of Hormuz. The crucial point here is that the Strait of Hormuz remains an absolute linchpin in international energy security. Why? Because a huge percentage of the world's daily oil supply passes right through this remarkably narrow, vulnerable passage. Any instability there doesn't just stay regional, it immediately threatens to spike global energy markets.
Let's combine 2 related questions for this next one, regarding a major ongoing European conflict that is still a top concern for world leaders. First, which ongoing conflict continues to be a major global concern? And second, which country's president formally thanked the G7 for their ongoing support in seeking peace?
The Guardian reports that the Russia-Ukraine war continues to be a primary global focus. And the answer to the second part is the president of Ukraine, who explicitly thanked G7 leaders for their diplomatic and material support. This just underscores how the conflict remains a massive anchor on global stability, requiring continuous international effort to find any viable path toward peace. Okay, let's pivot our review away from traditional military conflicts and jump into Module 3, Tech and the Economy.
Put your investor hat on for a second. Beyond the G7, what major institutional meeting has the global financial markets basically holding their breath this week? Think about the one institution that really dictates the flow of capital.
According to the Wall Street Journal, all eyes are currently on the Federal Reserve's interest rate meeting because, as we know, when the Fed speaks, global markets listen. When the Federal Reserve adjusts rates, it dictates the cost of borrowing globally, impacts currency valuations, and sends huge ripples through worldwide inflation. It is easily the single most heavily watched economic event of the week.
Let's combine another set of questions, this time looking at a technological force so massive it had its own dedicated focus at the G7. What global issue is increasingly influencing our economies, our education systems, and our workplaces worldwide?
No surprise here, the answer is artificial intelligence. Both Caxton Global and ENA English highlight AI as the defining technological topic of the moment. We saw it on the high-level G7 agenda, but it's also radically reshaping everything from how classrooms function to the very nature of global labor markets. It is the inescapable tech current of 2026, forcing everyone to figure out complex regulations at lightning speed.
You made it through the heavy geopolitical and economic questions. Let's cool down with a lighter bonus question before we tally up the final results. Lock in your final answer for this massive athletic event that is absolutely defining the summer of 2026. What international sporting tournament is attracting worldwide attention right now and is unique because it's being jointly hosted by the United States, Canada, and Mexico?
If you've been on Reddit, or frankly, watching any sports network anywhere in the world, you know it's the FIFA World Cup 2026. It is totally taking over the globe this month. And spreading a massive tournament of this scale across 3 entire nations is just an unprecedented logistical feat. Give yourself a bonus point if you got that one right.
All right, pencils down. Let's tally up your points and see where you landed. If you scored a 9 or 10, stellar job. You are deeply tapped into the news cycle. A 7 or 8 is very good. A 5 or 6 means you've got a solid baseline. And if you scored below a 5, well, that just means you need to keep reading up on your current affairs. Whether you aced it or need to hit the books a little harder, the learning never stops. So which of these rapidly evolving stories are you going to dive into next? Will you look closer at the diplomatic fallout of the G7? Are you going to track the shifting naval dynamics in the Strait of Hormuz? Or maybe analyze what the Fed ultimately decides? The news cycle moves incredibly fast, and staying deeply informed is really the only way to keep up. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.